Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, guys.
Greetings. Hey, Adam. How you doing?
Not bad time for you, mate.
Good.
Good. Let's rattle our way through housekeeping. There's lots to discuss today. So, any signs of a physical Earth curve edge, formerly known as the geometric horizon?
Not from anywhere on this earth.
Well, it's somewhere over there, like in the middle of the field or the ocean. There it is.
Somewhere.
I know it doesn't look like a horizon. It's
Over
just an
the
arbitrary
rainbow.
mark within a photograph, but that's a geometric horizon. That's where it's supposed to be.
Supposed to be? I don't give a crap about supposed to be. Where is the physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve? Where's that? Show it
It's
me.
there.
Well, it's there, but you can't see it because everything is all being projected, displaced, including the horizon itself.
Am I stuttering? When I say physical geometric, those words have meaning. You realise that, Arwin? Physical geometric, not apparent and over there somewhere because it's hologrammatically projected. That's no longer geometric.
Isn't it?
Nathan, ask your
No!
question again.
Hold on,
So,
10th.
from
What do
the
you mean,
top.
isn't it? What does geometric mean to you, Arwin?
It's about spatiality, basically.
Or
Right.
geometry?
It is, right? It is about spatial relations and all that, positions.
The geometric part of it limits it quite severely to a very specific thing. It's geometric value based on R. That's what the geometric horizon is. Not based on refracted R. That's a contradiction in terms. Just R. That's what gives you the geometric horizon. R and your height.
Right. And that is assuming that you see everything roughly as is, which the ballers denounce that notion.
It's not assuming anything, it's just geometric. That's what geometric is. I don't have to disclaim anything about what we're seeing or doing, it just is geometric. Can you break this down better than I can, Adam? So when I say the word geometric, if people are going to hand wave that and say, oh no, well no, let's talk about something that isn't geometric then. No. You've got a geometric horizon, and maybe people don't understand what that actually means in real terms and what it must be in order to be geometric. Maybe, Adam, you can help me out, because I'm not making myself clear.
You were to me. I mean, all I would add to that is it's a physicality. It's your starting point that whatever you're going to discuss, add in terms of refraction, it's the starting point that you have to then build all these other factors in. If you're going to say you're honourable, then you have to be held by that initial geometry.
Right.
So there's no wiggle room.
What if there was no... well, I'm getting echoes here.
That's me just talking through you, sorry.
Anyway, but what if there is just no possibility to ever see any geometrical edge because supposedly in the real world, everything is always just visually warped, so you can never see it.
Then we get the rebuttal
No
they
matter
give us,
what you
Arwin.
presuppose, even.
Then we get the rebuttal they give us. We do not see the geometric horizon. Well, then we don't have one.
Well, you could have one, but it wouldn't be a horizon.
No.
But you
Like I
can't
say,
see it.
we've got when you say geometric, right, that doesn't involve not seeing it or it being something else. It's either a physical geometric sphere edge horizon as depicted in their model marked with an X, the starting point based on R, or it isn't. It's just that simple.
Nathan,
Right.
Nathan, may I ask Arwin a question? Geometric, doesn't that mean Earth measurement?
Sort of, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
then if it's Earth measurement, it means it can be measured.
I can't say at this point.
What do you mean you can't say? You found the alien dating site, Speciality. Come on.
What? No, there's no sight of that. There's no sight of that. That's my work. It's in my head.
Come on, Arwin. Earth measurement. It must be if you measure it, then you've seen it to measure it. So if they got X mark in the spot, it has to be measured.
I don't know what's going on. Maybe I've been listening to Chaiki too much, but I'm getting confused.
Gosh. Good idea.
Least you can say.
He does
I'm
kind
a
of
bit
have the
confused.
tendency to melt your brain, you know.
Hear that, Globeheads? See what Arwin just did? That's something beyond your capabilities. Arwin's just said, "Oh, maybe I don't understand. I'm a bit confused." Then, wasn't that easy, Arwin?
Yeah.
So easy. I
Because
don't
then I
know.
can move on
I
after
just
that.
don't know. That's fair enough. No worries.
Yep. Can take a baller an hour though, and then they end up not doing it and just leaving.
Just reassert your original question as a statement, and then we'll go around in circles for the next 10 minutes. How about that? That sounds more Globehead to me.
Right. Or you just move on to the next question as a red herring maneuver,
Let's do
which
exactly
will
that.
end up in the same situation, so you can then move on to another subject, or even better, to the original subject over again.
Exactly. You didn't do that. You just said, maybe I'm a bit confused. We can go over the geometric physicality of a sphere edge horizon till we're blue in the face. That's no worries at all. But we won't, because we're going to do housekeeping. So any signs of axial rotation?
No,
Not
not
nothing
the
in.
Earth base.
Oh, the wind is blowing hard today. Must be due to Earth spinning, right?
Just making casual chit-chat about the weather, or is that proof of axial rotation, Arwin?
Well, the wind does seem to be going in one direction.
Always?
Does it? I don't think so.
No, just now.
Oh, right now it's going in one direction. I see.
Yes. And so if I presuppose that that's happening at all times at a constant speed in the same direction, then I could presuppose that that might be evidence that perhaps the Earth may be spinning after all. But I see that the chances
I'll do it for
very
you if you
remote.
want. Formulate it into a logical fallacy. No worries. If the wind is travelling straight right here, right now, for Arwin, it is. Therefore, the Earth is a sphere. What do you know? It is travelling pretty much straight at the moment. Therefore, Earth's a sphere.
Well, isn't that what Arwin was struggling with the geometric horizon? Because it was presupposed.
Yeah, if you just presuppose it, then you don't need it to actually be a physical geometric horizon at all. You just presuppose it and move on from there. Everything else is based on and hung around the idea that you have this R value that's not in existence, can't be seen, can't be measured, isn't real. But you've presupposed it at the beginning of whatever it is you're making a conclusion from, therefore what you need to measure anyway, you've just assumed it.
Yep. But anyway, no actual rotation detectable on the Earth.
Oh well. Any evidence
Well,
of the distance to the sun?
why would you detect that?
Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning, guys. Why would you detect any spinning if it's supposed to be spinning?
Normally because they presuppose it's spinning, as opposed to have a spin to detect.
Well, I think because with things spinning, yeah, in general, like gases stay in their place as things move, physical things move and have momentum in their rotation and all that. But the ballers say that that's never the case, and that air does quite the opposite and actually spins with physical objects, even though they can't actually demonstrate that.
That wouldn't yield the claim
Like,
proof of Earth spinning, though, which is Coriolis deviation. If that was the case, you wouldn't have any deviation or deflection to observe from a claim to be non-inertial spinning reference frame that is a ball Earth turning at 15 degrees an hour. You wouldn't observe that if that was the case, even though they can't demonstrate that anyway, and it's a claim
Right.
coming from the inertial reference frame, which isn't Coriolis. It's irrelevant because it wouldn't give you the proof that they claim they have in the form of Coriolis deviation.
Right.
well, so far they're 0 for 2. The Earth is spinning, but we can't detect it. There's a geometric physical horizon edge, but we can't see it. So let's keep going. So they're 0 for 2.
Right. They spend all their time with the Earth spin to try to justify why it wouldn't have any natural physical consequences that a ball would be spinning with gases around it and all that. But for some reason, though,
but
they
at the
will
same
still
time,
resort
telling us
they will still
how it
point at the
spins.
tornadoes, though. Despite all that, that's even the more confusing about it.
Oh, yeah,
They
we
should
went
have
through
just left Coriolis out entirely, but apparently they needed to do it like that.
we went through that a couple of days ago for Sean Hawkins. Go on, Chocolate.
Well, you got to point out things that are actually spinning, right? In order to give you some foot in the ground, some type of leverage. So look at this. The Earth's not spinning, but look at this hurricane. Oh, that proves that the Earth is spinning because that's spinning.
Yeah,
That's the cute little trick they do.
correct. Absolutely spot on, Chocolate. They need something to be spinning, and they haven't got it. So here you go. Look, that's spinning, and that's Coriolis. That proves Earth spinning. Right? See that spin? That's because Earth's spinning. Because I
There you go.
presuppose it. It's got nothing to do with Coriolis, but I'm going to make that assertion. I'll even put it in a paragraph about Coriolis effect, and the idiots will read it and assume that that's true, even though Coriolis is a not actual deflection you observe from a position where you're spinning, but non-inertial. In other words, your reference frame is the spinning reference frame that, from your viewpoint, isn't moving at all, even though it's spinning. And what you observe outside of your spinning reference frame seems to curve, because you're spinning. Well, that's Coriolis effect. Sod all to do with anything that's in the inertial reference frame, nothing to do with planes or balls or anything else. Merely your observation of those things seeming to curve when they're not. But if you don't have that, i.e. you don't look up a plane and go, hey, that plane looks like it's curving, must be me rotating underneath, shortening the flight time of that aeroplane. Well, because that doesn't happen, they've got to point at something that spins if they're going to assert we've got a Coriolis proof of Earth spinning, which they haven't.
Yep.
Hey, Paul.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Very well. Good to have you. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I still had one more question, but I was muted. About like, why is nobody, or why isn't it possible to fact check Wikipedia on the Coriolis effect? Why isn't there any push on that? Like, hello, this is incorrect. This is not the Coriolis effect. Why aren't people complaining, trying to edit that out of the way?
Because there's a current rhetoric religion that 99% of the Western world are under called heliocentrism, and it claims it's got a proof of Coriolis deviation in the form of a deviation at 15 degrees an hour as Earth rotates underneath stuff. So they need to convolute that. If someone comes along to the Wikipedia page and says, hang on a second, if they actually define Coriolis effect correctly, then we would all quickly realise that we don't have one on Earth. Coriolis is real, but we don't have one on Earth because it's not spinning. So they need to point at something that's giving them a spin to confuse and convolute the fact that we don't have an Earth that's spinning.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just disappointed that there should be at least like attempts visible. Like, okay, there is a mention, like there is a conflict about the opinion of whether Coriolis affect this or that. And it's just nothing. Just the standard story as it is, and it's been like that for a long time now.
There is one.
Yeah, but as Nathan,
Just accept it, man. Just accept it. Coriolis only works out when you're shooting bullets, right? And when you have pendulums, right? It doesn't affect planes. It doesn't affect hot air balloons or anything else floating around in the atmosphere. Just
Hey,
things that
Chuck.
are in the atmosphere for 2-3 seconds.
Chocolate.
No problem.
Chocolate. Is that pendulum attached to a building that's attached to the Earth? That's spinning?
Yes,
it
balls
is,
thrown over.
unfortunately.
Balls
No, no, no.
thrown have deviation, but a plane flying through the air doesn't. It makes sense, damn it.
Hold on. Just wanna correct. Hold on, 10th man. No. So the pendulum, the reason they claim that that's proving Earth spins, I'll put my hands in the air and say I did the same thing. When I first got to this subject, that was how I debunked, or thought I debunked the pendulum's claim. But you haven't in that statement. I'm really sorry to do this to you. The pendulum's claiming to swing on one axis. Forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. Doesn't deviate, ever. Yeah? So, even though you're seeing the pendulum knock over the dominoes, it's not the pendulum. The fact that it's attached to the building doesn't change it. If you've got a clock with a pendulum, it's still going to swing back and forth regardless of what it's doing. Do you see what I mean? It's just moving in one frame of reference. But because it's claimed that the Earth spins underneath the pendulum, what you're viewing is an apparent deviation as the Earth spins underneath that fixed frame of the back and forth that the pendulum gives you. So that's how they claim to prove Earth is spinning underneath at 15 degrees an hour with that pendulum. Well, if it's spinning underneath the pendulum at 15 degrees an hour, it's spinning underneath, as Chocolate just pointed out, hot air balloons, drones, helicopters, aeroplanes, anything that's left the non-inertial reference frame. Now, the fact that the pendulum is swinging attached to the building is irrelevant of the fact that it's swinging back and forth. Yeah? That's the independent motion that it has in its non-inertial reference frame. See what I mean? So the deflection you're seeing is a not actual deviation.
Yeah, but the way I look at it is the causes of Coriolis is you got to have two reference frames.
Correct.
So one's the non-inertial and one's the inertial.
Yeah,
So
in the case
if
of the pendulum, the pendulum's swinging back and forth through the inertial reference frame. Doesn't matter that it's attached to the non-inertial spinning reference frame in the form of the building, because they've got it on a little, the whatever the mechanism at the top of it is designed to allow it to spin freely as the Earth rotates underneath in the second reference frame. So yeah, your pendulum is the inertial reference frame, but you're viewing it from the non-inertial spinning reference frame. So you're watching it seem to deviate in the non-inertial spinning reference frame. Seem to, it isn't. It's just what you see as you rotate underneath it, or a claim to.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but let's delve into it, because the way I see it is they have some kind of mechanism in the actual pendulum that deviates it. But if the building is attached to the non-inertial reference frame and the pendulum is attached to the building, which is attached to the non-inertial reference frame, isn't that considered all to be the non-inertial reference frame?
No, in the same way as a gyro spinning in multiple axes and is separated and is in its own fixed reference frame, spinning on one axis constantly in the same plane, and then if you turn the gimbal around it will stay where it is and the gimbal's moving relative to it, but obviously it's still attached to the gimbal. Likewise, the pendulum is still attached to the building. As I say, I made this same mistake. Well, that can't be correct. It's attached to the building. Well, yeah, it can be, because your gyroscope can be attached to the building, but it's only doing it in one axis though with a pendulum rather than multiple axis with a gyro. But the principle is the same according to them. The main point of this is they're claiming Earth's rotating underneath that pendulum. And if it's rotating underneath the pendulum, it's rotating underneath helicopters and planes and balloons and everything else. It can't not be. It doesn't. Therefore, the pendulum's the only example, or the gyro, or the pendulum, or as Chocolate pointed out, things that are in the air for less than a second, like a bullet.
Well, that's where I was leading to, but thank you for the correction. If it spins underneath the pendulum, then it must spin underneath an airplane that's in the air longer.
Exactly. I think they want us to argue about the mechanics of the pendulum, because that doesn't debunk anything. Whereas if you point out, okay, well, if you're claiming the Earth's rotating underneath that pendulum, then it's also rotating under a drone, because that's also in the inertial reference frame, same as the pendulum, because it's left the spinning reference frame you claim Earth is. So therefore, what, you launch a drone in the same exact building and Earth rotates underneath it as it hovers? No. No one's ever observing anything rotate underneath drones at 15 degrees an hour. No one takes off in a helicopter and has Earth rotate underneath at 15 degrees an hour. Flight times are not shortened when travelling west, because Earth's rotating underneath them. None of the effects required to create a Coriolis effect exist on Earth. Unless you spin a roundabout and watch something that's not on it.
Well, the definition is an apparent deviation. It's not actually deviating.
No. If you're on a roundabout and you're looking at a lamppost, as you spin around, the lamppost looks like it's moving. Well, it's not. It's concreted into the bloody ground. But because you're spinning underneath it as you look up at the lamppost, it looks like it's taking a curved path. But wouldn't you know it's actually concreted, completely stationary, not moving at all? It's a not actual deflection because you're rotating underneath it.
I think it's just an absolute clown show with this nonsense that I can stand and stare at this pendulum and see it apparently deviate, and that's supposed to prove the Earth, movement to me. But the plane that I take off in New York and fly 2,000 miles to California or Arizona or something, that doesn't show any deviation. No, no, I don't have to worry about that then. Just staring at a pendulum. That proves the rotation. Great.
Careful. Careful. Once you get on your plane, nothing's not even remotely connected to Coriolis effect at that point. So when you're on your rotating roundabout looking at your lamppost, you are on a rotating platform observing stuff. Seem to deviate. That's Coriolis. It will always be referenced, without exception, from the spinning reference frame. So if I'm observing Coriolis, I'm an observer in a stand, watching a ball get kicked according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and from my vantage point in the stand, it looks like it curves as Earth rotates under the ball. That's Coriolis effect. Me observing it look like it's curving. As soon as I describe what the ball does, doesn't matter how I describe it, I'm not describing an observation of the ball from a non-inertial reference frame. I've got to be looking at it, describing what it looks like it's doing. That would be looking like it's curving when it's not, to be Coriolis. So if I'm detailing being on a plane, I'm not talking about Coriolis effect. I might, as a flat earther, be describing the consequences we don't have that would lead to Coriolis effect. So if I'm on a plane detailing the lack of a shortened flight time, what I'm detailing is the lack of the requirements that would give you Coriolis effect. That would be Earth rotating under the plane, shortening the flight time. That's what you'd need to have Coriolis. And if the globehead on the other side of this argument starts talking about what the plane's doing, he's not talking about Coriolis anymore, and that's what they have to. That would be an observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame like a roundabout of a lamppost in an inertial reference frame, not actually moving, just seeming to. So as soon as you detail the lamppost being concreted into the ground as a globehead, you're not talking about Coriolis anymore, because it's not the observation that you're detailing.
Well, it's a train wreck anyway, because the minute they say Coriolis proves something, you say, oh, so then Earth is spinning under the airplane, but the airplane takes the same amount of time to get there? No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. Zeus cut out and trimmed out the discussion between myself and Rumpus where he did exactly that. We established with him what Coriolis is, Earth rotating underneath at 15 degrees an hour, and then we ask him, is Earth rotating underneath at 15 degrees an hour with reference to aeroplanes? And his answer's got to be yes, because that's the claim that you have if you've got Coriolis. And that would shorten flight times. The cause of Coriolis would shorten the flight time. Now, the shortening of the flight time isn't Coriolis effect, that's got nothing to do with it. The observation from the ground of you seeing the plane seem to curve, what they claim happens with a football, same would happen with a plane. You're spinning underneath it, according to them. Well, if you don't see it seeming to deviate, you haven't got Coriolis. That's their claim. And if they have, and they say, oh, well, I do see the plane seeming to curve, as Rumpus did, well, then Earth's rotating underneath it, shortening the flight time when travelling west, bringing continents to hovering helicopters and drones. Well, that doesn't happen. We don't have Earth rotating underneath anything to give us a Coriolis observation from the ground. Nothing's ever seeming to curve, because Earth's rotating underneath. Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Hey.
Did you want to present something, Paul?
Hey, Arwin.
What's up, Riley?
Right, Tony,
Chocolate. Mr. Meakin.
what are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've got a question to ask you about electrolysis later, Meakin. So don't drop after the end of the show.
Let's rattle through housekeeping then while we have the 5 stages of denial on screen. So Any signs of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No way.
Only diagrams.
Any scientific
Only
evidence
on their
of
model.
gravity? Oh, go on, let's rattle through them. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
They can't even define it, let alone demonstrate it.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, none. Danny Faulkner will be the one to ask for that, but he doesn't like talking to us.
John Hawkins from the chat says Cavendish. Not an experiment.
Yeah, and gravity's not a force. either.
Cavendish. Guys are still
Yeah,
holding on to Cavendish. Oh my god.
Cavendish is
We
not an
like our Cavendish, sir.
Cavendish is not an experiment, and gravity is not a force. Wake up, Sean. We've been telling you for months and months.
Didn't hear my joke? We like our Cavendish served cold.
Cavendish is the best. No. Let me get it. I'll think about it. I'll work on it. Moving on. What have we got left? Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
No.
Nope.
Wasn't there a great presentation that didn't answer that last night?
Yeah, check it out. I'm going to mirror it, and hopefully so will Sleeping Warrior Quantum Eraser once it resolves itself in terms of its decent resolution. So at the moment it's available on Sleeping Warrior's channel if you want to check it out now. A response to Danny Faulkner, whose rebuttal to how can you have gas pressure without a container, given a 6-month period, a quick Google search, and citing Hillbilly Blue Balls, the redneck retard with his 2 containers. His written response on Answers in Genesis was to say that you just need to go outside. And so long as you have a fundamentalist religious belief that the sky is a vacuum, you can observe that we do have gas pressure, and you retain your religious belief in a sky vacuum, therefore it's capable of having gas pressure without a container in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, because I believe it's a vacuum. So that was his rebuttal. Go outside and express your fundamentalist religious sky vacuum belief.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Oddly, Rumpus has claimed that Dr. Danny Faulkner was absolutely right on every single one of his points. Really? Rumpus.
Oh,
you're an
really?
idiot.
Well, that's fascinating, because I set down a challenge, because within 3 sentences of explaining that you don't require a container to have gas pressure, he explained that he was a physicist, someone who deals in the physical, natural world. So I've challenged him to actually provide us a physical demonstration of that. Given that he's already cited the redneck retard, the photosynthetic idiot that is blue marble science, and his 2-container demonstration of a gas pressure gradient, I'm not going to assume off the top of my experience so far that you're going to actually demonstrate this in physicality, despite claiming to be a physicist. That concludes the housekeeping. So, what did you want to... What did you want to... Anthony, go ahead.
Quick question, Nathan. If you go outside and look at the sky vacuum, isn't that physical?
What vacuum?
No, we do not observe a sky vacuum, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have sky vacuum glasses, Adam, that I don't know about? Because I want to go outside and look up and see a vacuum, man. Where'd you get those glasses?
The special ones, yeah.
UK special.
Hang on a sec. I've got something that since Adam's on here and Anthony's on here, I've got something. Just I've been thinking about this, and it comes up in the discussion a lot. You know, about acceleration and forces. Right now, we've said this before. Like I've got a can of Coke sitting on my counter, and I just moved it. So I applied a force which has to have acceleration to move it, but now it's setting at rest. Now, for a force to be applied, either downward or upward on the can of Coke, there has to be an acceleration. But if it's not moving, there's no acceleration. So how is there a force keeping my can of Coke on the counter?
There isn't. They assume a force and then say it's being counteracted. So net force 0 is what their answer to that would be.
Well, right, and that's that. And I looked that up, and the only way when you have a net force 0 is when they say all the forces are balanced. But my counter is not moving; it's not accelerating. Technically, there's no force applied even on my counter that's in a sense, keeping that can of Coke there. You see what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? So when they talk about a force of gravity, there has to be some kind of acceleration going on, which, according to Newton's law, which I've got on the, on the screen, acceleration has to be a part of that equation. If the acceleration is zero, there's no force. It can't be. My can of Coke is not accelerating, so there's no force holding that can of Coke on the counter, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. Just please tell me.
No, your Coke's not accelerating. They can assume that it's being counteracted, and it is accelerating, though. I assure you of that also.
Okay, but for the opposite force, like the counter has to be accelerating up towards the can of Coke, but it's not. It's not.
Not in reality, but what you can do is produce a set of opposing numbers that cancel out the force that you want to be there that's not there anyway. So that the two cancel out to give you the zero that you've got.
So really, it's
I like how you said not in reality. So like on the really is level, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere. But if you don't necessarily have to work on the really is level, everything's going all over the place and there's all types of movement going on. You just don't see it.
It's a concept of describing that, of wanting to describe weight as a consequence of mass and acceleration. So when you're in this position where there is no acceleration, you've got to then come up with a patch, haven't you? A mathematical fix as to why that's not the case, is my understanding. So it's, the concept of, A is zero kind of ruins it mathematically, which is why they don't have it as zero. I think we still
can you mute Paul? I can't hear Adam.
So really, so what I'm understanding Adam's saying, it's really a mathematical construct that they're putting into play.
Yeah.
Okay, so really, if the counter's not accelerating up and the can's not accelerating down, there is no force holding the can on the counter. It's just sitting there. There's no force implied.
Well, I have a question, right? So you're saying that acceleration requires a force, right? Well, Riley, who's on the panel right now, caused an egg to move up simply by changing the medium, the density of the medium that the egg was sitting in. So when he did that just simply by adding salt. So was the adding salt adding a force? Was the change of the medium creating a force to move that egg up? Because the egg moved up, so that's acceleration, right?
Yeah.
Movement.
Go ahead, Armin.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead, Armin.
it's the salt introduction and the dissolving into the water causes an effective disequilibrium between the egg and the water that has changed its density, and this disequilibrium provides the force that causes the motion and the displacement.
And that simply is force causing the egg to move up.
It's got a great title too.
That force.
Hold on, Adam. The relative density disequilibrium force, you mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
That would be a consequence of realignment at intermolecular level. So that's where the force is generated from, in between the molecules themselves that express that movement. So the way in which that object is moved is at the macroscopic level. So it's the realignment at that level that generates the force. So if you think of it as water, like just the way in which the molecules have to align because of their physical and electrical chemistry that they can't all touch, the way in which they have to realign, they're more dense, so they're able to support more weight, and it's that realignment that then pushes the egg up. In my understanding, that's where the force is generated from. Because you can't get something from nothing; it has to come from somewhere, and it's that molecular alignment that's generating that force.
And see, that's something I've been thinking about. Hang on a
If
second.
I may add on to something.
Well, before you do, I don't get to talk very much. I've got a quiet moment, so you can talk a lot. You got no kids in the background. I've actually been thinking about what you just said, Adam. What causes the things to move, and It's actually the way the molecules are interacting more than anything else. It's causing disequilibrium, causing things to move or fall. Because, you know, chemistry, which that's what you are, you see that all those things happening in chemistry, right? Certain, you know, the bonds break up because of heat, or they move apart, but they come back together because of their molecular bonds, or they rearrange according to the structure. I mean, I've actually thought more along those lines. It's what's causing most of what we see than any other mystical force that Einstein or Newton can come up with.
Yeah. This more in terms of, if you think of it like packaging material, it can take shoving it in a box. If you put more cotton wool, which is your solute, into your water, which is your box, it can take more weight on top of it. Does that make sense? You put in more, you're making the water more dense, so it can. Just, and in doing so, at that point, it's like you're sliding it more packaging underneath. Now, the only consequence of that is that it will raise it. The force of you sliding in, your hand force, is actually generated between the molecules themselves as they align. Is my comprehension of how that force is generated.
Well, if I may, the whole disequilibrium force between the densities causing the displacements, there's another chain to the link of that effect, and that is if there is no maneuverability left for the material to displace towards its equilibrium point, then it will redirect that force into pressure. And that is also what is perceived as weight, effectively. The pressure from the disequilibrium of it trying to reach its equilibrium point, but not having the maneuverability to do it. And then it becomes pressure instead of motion.
I like
and that's
to
also what's pushing, making the water in an aquarium push.
Now, all I would say with that, Owen, is that still, though, whilst it explains for me causality of density, it still doesn't postulate orientation. It doesn't give a, and I think that's where you start to look into the.
Cause for the orientation.
Yeah, exactly. Let me finish. That's where you have to look at things that have got nothing to do with it that maybe possibly cause it. So not a direct function of up and down, something to do with the way in which electromagnetism works for me, because that would make sense, because we do seem to have repetition in which density and buoyancy play out. So there would appear to be a non-relevant causality for that direction. I don't think I can say much more about it, but I do think there has to be a secondary to all of this, other fundamental things that play a role in orientation.
Yeah, entropy.
Entropy is again, yeah, but I'm talking more why, for want of.
It's gravity.
Hold on.
Yeah,
it's gravity.
Not to apply an overreaching force. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about why the molecules want to move that way. Now, from a gravity point of view, you would say, yeah, it's this overreaching force that's pushing that stuff that way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, is there something that's nothing to do with it, but could be causality as to why the molecules want to orientate that way? And they do want to do that, but I don't think I can. Hang on, it's got nothing to do with an overreaching force for me. There's not an additional force applied. I'm saying there may be a mechanism that allows those intermolecular forces to always kind of orientate like that, or have that causality.
Were you part of the discussion?
I totally agree with you, but there's only one way to achieve that, and that is in order to vary and manipulate this alignment.
I'm getting there. Owen, hold on. Adam, were you part of the discussion between Quantum Eraser, Dr. John D, and I can't remember if you... Wasn't the conclusion that it's a second order effect of entropy?
Yes, but again, that's an effect, not a cause, and that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Is
I'm getting. Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. Right. So because of that, based on that conclusion, you're trying to figure out the mechanism that's a second order effect of a natural law in terms of how it occurs. It is what it is. It does order itself that way, and trying to figure out the mechanism, as you put it, is for me folly. It's pointless.
I think certainly where we are at the moment, it's a grail. I wouldn't necessarily. I think the hope of all science is that you do look at these things and hope so. But for me, yeah, my conclusion was. But I'm quite happy to leave it as a natural law, because I think until you can come up with some postulations as to all the other mechanisms in play, like magnets and everything's magnetic. That's why I was gutted with lockdown, because Zach's stuff that he was doing in terms of magnetics isn't going to disprove gravity. Well, it'll disprove an overreaching force, but if it could show that you can in some way impede this falling motion with that's quite significant to suggest there are other mechanisms at play, which I say most fundamentally destroys gravity, because if you can put one little factor in there that alters the numbers, we know how rigid their numbers are, it destroys it. Does that mean you'll ever get to the causality? No, but does that mean that geeks don't want to experiment and explore?
Right.
I completely agree. I'd love it to be the theory of entropy. It would be fantastic if somebody established the cause. That would be great. And I'm not in any way saying that people shouldn't try and make strive forward to try and explain things. You know, I'm not decrying that, but I'm just saying, for me, do I think I'll figure out the cause of entropy? I don't think so. I mean, I might.
If I may add on to the conversation there, concerning the apparent force disequilibrium field that you could conceive to be gravity, but it's basically a concept in order to explain the alignment of the density force direction, the density disequilibrium force. Well, there is a possibility to get a reading on this, but you'd have to be able to get some kind of grip on a model, hear me out on this, a model for it. And in order to find that, it has to become something more than just this apparent universal field that is the same everywhere. You'd have to find out if there is some kind of spatial element that alters it in some way. So is there, for example, less displacement motion going on very high up near the end of the container or whatever? Is something like that going on? If there was, for real, not just NASA telling us, then we could start to see that there is more to it than that it is this apparent universal thing. And then you can get closer to actually trying to figure out how you could influence what is making it established the way it is.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Can I add a bit of onto that?
Thank you for letting me finish that.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
You're right, Owen. That's what Good Times is looking at, and with he's not just dropping magnets. It is a repetition of tests that went off with supposed results, and it is if orientation, then change in falling rate. So we really want to see if these things can be affected. And like I said, if you can show a slight effect in it, it does destroy what they're saying as the fundamental reason of an overreaching force. If you can just negate a little bit of it, it destroys their numbers. So I don't think in my lifetime, if I'll see an answer to it, but I do.
But Adam, that's very difficult though, because you could potentially create like refined electrostatic effects that would effectively negate the weight or the density of an object for all kinds of mechanisms. But that would not literally alter the perceived workings of gravity itself, because the entire field is not manipulated. It's literally an other effect that has similar influences that you're introducing and then just calling that gravity, but it's not actually manipulating the universal perceived field. See?
So that's what we're talking about. Is this field? Is it a field effect?
Exactly.
Are you able to manipulate part of that and affect some variance in results? And if you do show that, then you show that you don't demonstrate what it is, but again, you demonstrate that it's not this thing that is so well defined.
Right.
Can I give a
Something else.
Can I give a real
Hold on
world
a second.
example, please?
Oh,
Yeah, go on,
No.
10th man. You've been waiting for a while. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, I like Adam's packaging box example, because this whole conversation started off with a glass of water. Then salt was added, and then the egg had two different dispositions, one with no salt in the water and one with more salt in the water. When I went to the Dead Sea in Israel, I don't care if you were skinny or the fattest person on that tour group, that you could not sink because it is so full of salt. You were like a cork in the water, much like the egg just floating up. I mean, someone would have to push you down to make you drown. That's how buoyancy there was. I also went into the Pacific Ocean all my
Yes.
life here, and you can drown. It's very difficult to float in the swimming pool or the Pacific Ocean unless you know how to do it. And you got to have calm seas, of course. But there is no force. It was just more salt.
more density.
That was the whole point of me bringing that up, because the constant talk about how you need some type of a force to cause acceleration, where I look at this cup with an egg simply floating in some salt water, and you add a little bit more salt, it goes up. If you were to take a little bit of the salt out, it moved down. And it's just that simple to me. Like it doesn't necessitate all this other force and mass attracting mass and all this other nonsense. Like it's really kind of just so simple.
Well, I don't think Newton claimed mass was really attracted by mass.
Yeah, I know that.
That was after him.
Yeah, it's Reverend John Michel, Cavendish, CV Boys.
Poor guy wanted nothing to do with it. Let's slap his name all over it. No worries.
Well, it does sound like a good brand for a dishwasher machine. You know, the Cavan dishwasher.
Right. Okay, I'm going to play a clip. So, Quantum Eraser's been good enough to cut out.
Hang on, Nathan. Hang on.
okay.
That would explain rinse and repeat argument.
Boom, boom.
I was waiting for it.
Right, let's get this clip going.
No name, more like no integrity whatsoever. White knighting for Sean the Crackhead Hawkins with his water vapor is not a gas. Jose JG Retard Show, 25 May 2020.
Can I get no name to read that definition again?
And that was a while ago, huh?
Well, I'd like to clarify if he could read it again.
Can you not read? Are you illiterate? I mean, it's right there in the internal chat and in the live stream chat.
If you could just read it out for the audience, that would be great.
Let's read it. Yeah, you gotta get good reading voice. No name.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. When water is heated, it undergoes a phase change and water vapor forms. Gas is a state of matter while water vapor is not. A gas is a substance above its critical temperature but below its critical pressure, while a vapor is a substance above its boiling point temperature.
Keep going. You have to keep reading.
Water vapors.
That's it.
You have to keep reading, because I'm reading the same definition I think that you're reading, because you read it word for word and I'm reading along. And then, okay, I will. Farmer's Boy, you ready?
Go for it.
Here's what the full definition ends with. Hang on, let me get to it. He just read the same thing. Gas is a state of matter while vapor is not. A gas is a substance above its critical temperature but is below its critical pressure, while a vapor is a substance above its boiling point temperature. Y'all would agree that was word for word? And then the end says, a vapor is a gas, with vapor and gas highlighted. He forgot to read that.
Ding, 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 ding,
Wow.
Boom, Jose. That's what you should have said, right? This is a real boom this time. Yeah, didn't hear anything from you just yet. Shocking surprise. This is typical spinning ball-tard space monkey behavior, folks. Get used to it. Let's see if there's any more meat on the bone that we can gnaw into.
Wow.
Cherry pick to its best. By no name.
It's only you lot that are allowed to do that.
Trying to rub it in too.
Yeah, well, he just called me an idiot and said I couldn't read, right? Yeah, I'm a rub it in. Go ahead.
That's not cherry picking. That's
no, not you, Rocky.
It doesn't
matter. Brian, hold on.
No, I'm just pointing out. Yeah, it's not cherry picking to miss out part of something. Okay, but it's still a wrong thing to do.
You think it's not cherry picking to leave out a vapor is a gas when that's the
I need to say something. I need to say something.
It's not cherry picking. It's more like quote mining to pick out part of something. Let's get our fallacies in order. Yeah.
So we have Mr. Helper, the pinnacle of intellectual integrity, Miles the Liar Davis, letting everyone know that what just happened was quote mining, not cherry picking. Thanks for that. Did you know, Mr. Helper, from your alma mater wiki, in argumentation, the practice of quote mining is a form of cherry picking in which the debater selectively picks some quotes supporting a position or exaggerating an opposing position while ignoring those that moderate the original quote or put it into a different context. So calling it cherry picking is a-okay. You see, baltards don't know what logical fallacies are, and they most certainly don't know what cherry picking is. In conclusion, all you have to do is let these baltard spinning space monkeys open up their incoherent pie holes. That's all you need do, folks. They'll do your work for you. Thanks again!
So we're all clear now? Retards in the chat? Water vapor's gas? It was all so funny when you were laughing at me because you were thick as all shit and thought it wasn't. So, one of your kin went out and found a little quote and missed off the end where it points out that it is gas, hey? You thought you could just cherry pick that shit? Wow, what a bunch of idiots. Hope you're all clear now. It's a gas. Enjoy the aftertaste, fundies.
Yeah, you can't quote mine your way out of the actual core argument, Sean.
That was good, man. I was laughing on mute. That was good.
Has it really taken, a week of them figuring out that water vapor's gas? Are we really dealing with people at this level of stupidity? I mean, they were all having a good laugh about how stupid we were for calling water gas. Oh, yeah. What, not so funny anymore now it's demonstrated quite clearly how stupid you are? Yeah, you're all thick. I hope you appreciate how thick you are. Yeah? You want to laugh at us for being stupid while you're demonstrating to an audience, a live audience, just how stupid you are. Yeah, good on you, fundies. As Quantum Eraser correctly identifies, all you fundies have got to do is open your mouths to demonstrate how stupid you are, and we can qualify it with examples.
At best, that audio proved that there's laughing gas.
Nitrous oxide?
I was busting up. That was great.
Right, but I'm pretty sure
I
there's
just find it kind of funny,
down,
'cause
though.
even if you were confused as a fundie, I mean, a little cursory search, 2 seconds, and the first thing that pops up is when you look up water vapors, it's gas. I just put it in Ballbusters, the first thing that popped up. NASA, right? What does it say? Water vapor is also the most important greenhouse gas in the atmosphere.
No, chocolate. It's gaseous. It's not a gas.
Oh, that would be my mistake, being that I just read it's a important greenhouse gas.
So let's just clarify what's happening here. Sean Hawkins, you didn't think water vapour was a gas. Now, here on Flat Earth Debate, we discuss things like light and the second law of thermodynamics, whether or not we ponder the cause and mechanism of these laws of nature. That's what we ponder and contemplate here on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. Meanwhile, over on other platforms, they're spending 3 days figuring out whether or not water vapour is a gas. So, we're talking about the nature of reality. They're talking about whether or not water's a gas. That's the distinction between this show and other shows.
Well, they also spend days talking about whether or not their heliocentric nonsensical model is an open or closed system. Still trying to figure that out. Didn't they also have discussions about whether rockets are actually made of matter or not?
Yes, yes. Here we discuss the nature of reality. Deep philosophical questions about the nature of reality that we cover on this show. Meanwhile, on other shows, they're trying to figure out if a rocket is matter or not. That's correct, Chocolate.
Yeah.
And how a rocket can leave the atmosphere, but gas does not.
Yeah, that's way above their pay grade, Arwin. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. Other shows are available, but the original is definitely the best. If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!